time for these meetings. Welcome everyone to the regularly scheduled meeting of the USD 230 Board of Education. We will start with roll call.
Mr. Chitwood?
Here.
Mrs. Milius? Here. Mr. Ewing?
Here.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Here.
Mr. Hull?
Here.
Mrs. Baker?
Here.
Mrs. Horn?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Great. Moving on to approval of the agenda.
Madam President, one more time, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any discussion? Okay, please collect the vote.
Mrs. Milius?
Yes.
Mr. Ewing?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Hull?
Yes.
Mrs. Baker?
Yes.
Mrs. Horn?
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood?
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Moving on to 4.01. We'd like to start each meeting by reading our mission and vision statements, just to keep those at the forefront of everything we do here. Our mission is to be a school district that engages students to learn, create, adapt, and succeed in an ever-changing world. And our vision is to maintain small town values and empower each student to achieve world-class success. So with that in mind, we will move on to our next item of business, which is election of board officers. So just a little explanation of this. We usually do this in July. And last July, the board president that was elected did not seek re-election. And so we had another election in January. And now we're going to do our regular board elections for a year. So these will be for a year. So start with board president. Are there any nominations?
I would like to nominate Doug Hull for president, please.
Okay. Doug, do you accept that nomination?
I will accept.
Okay. Is there any other nominations for president?
I'd like to nominate Nicole Milius.
Okay. So we have Doug Hall. Nicole, will you accept that nomination?
I accept that nomination. Thank you.
Okay.
Since there are two nominations that you will vote on your cards by your desk, and then I will collect them.
Okay. I guess we need to close nominations though first. Okay, so if they're seeing no other nominations, we'll close nominations and go ahead and write your vote. Do you want us to pass them down or do you want to pick them up?
Okay, I will read the votes. Anna Baker, Doug. Doug Hull, Doug. Sharon Mitchell, Doug Hull. Keith Ewing, Nicole Milius. Nicole Milius, Nicole Milius. April Horn, Nicole Milius. John Chitwood, Nicole Milius. Nicole Milius is the board president.
Great. Okay, you get to take over now.
Okay. Do I just speak or?
Yeah, just go ahead and we'll do board vice president next. We'll help you through it.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, well, next on the agenda, 5.02, nomination of our board vice president. Are there any nominations?
I move to nominate Doug Hole as vice president.
Do you? Do you accept?
Would you like to accept that, sir?
I'll accept that.
Okay.
Are there any other nominations? Thank you, Sharon. Can I make a nomination? Is that allowed? I would like to nominate April Horn for vice president, please.
Thank you. I accept.
Are there any other nominations? All right, I guess we will close the nominations. Everyone vote and pass them down.
Okay, I will now read the votes. Nicole Milius, April Horn. April Horn, April Horn. Keith Ewing, April Horn. John Chitwood, Doug Hole. Anna Baker, Doug Hole. Sharon Mitchell, Doug Hole. Doug Hole, Doug Hole. Doug Hole is our vice president.
Well, congratulations. Okay, is that it? Okay, next. Okay, 6.01 organizational items. Please, Sharon, break in if I am doing it incorrectly. So I feel very new. I think that we have a few resolutions to make. Correct?
And I think Dr. Luttrell can walk through these for you if you would like him to.
I love that idea. Thank you.
The organization, there's a slew that are done every year. All school districts in Kansas are required to do them. And they are all in the end, kind of walk through them. And then at the end, they basically will ask for a motion to approve the organizational items for the 24-25 school year as presented. So we'll only vote one time, but I wanted to highlight a couple of them and that require either, the naming of someone. That would be, the first one is 6.07, which deals with the, basically the board treasurer for that position. So we kind of list it there. And we will be, as has been the case for quite a while, would be that that the organization approve Doug Schwinn as district treasurer whenever we get to the big motion at the end. Whenever it comes to the next one that is needed to point out is 6.20, which is basically to appoint a representative from the board that will serve as the Kansas Association of School Boards Governmental Relations Network representative, also be the one that would attend the delegate assembly at the state board convention usually held in the fall. In the past, that has been an individual from among the board. Sometimes it's the board president, but it does not have to be. So that one is left open. The last time that we had that last year, it was held usually by the board president. This time last year was president at that time on the board, Doug Updike, and he would always attend that whenever they had the meeting.
Is that one that because it says April Horn is currently president. So did we decide that in January?
May have.
Yeah, so, yep.
So that, if you want, April would be, is that, would y'all want that to be continue that?
Yeah. I'm happy to keep that unless
Okay.
somebody else wants it.
Okay. And, all right, April.
Then we've got 6.25, which is basically an individual that would serve as the liaison for our virtual school Insight. And I don't know, again, you've been the liaison for that, Sharon, if you want to stay with that or if you want someone.
Yeah, I would be willing to stay and do that.
Okay.
Nobody else wants to do it.
Sounds great. Thank you, Sharon.
And then we have 6.26, which is the appointment of a liaison to the Spring Hill Rec Commission. Currently been held by Doug Hull, and I know he's been active in that. And I know we've had a good relationship with them, and want to maintain that. So we would need that. And said, Mr. Hull, if you're willing to stay with that. Then we have some of the other main ones we want to look at. If you go down to, I think that might have been
Negotiations.
Yeah, the negotiation,
Yeah,
6.27.
6.27. Yeah. Yeah, we won't be doing those hopefully for a while, but because we do have a 2-year agreement, but if we would need to negotiate for whatever reason, it wouldn't hurt to have a couple individuals. Not sure that we'll meet this next year, but
Well, I
we
think
do
we
need, we
have
do need
a
to.
couple things from before. I think that'll be coming that.
Yeah, we don't have to negotiate the contract, but we did have some things that we were gonna work through with HR, so.
That would be brought back to the board as a whole with our health insurance, possibly looking at bidding that out as well as a supplement, kind of relooking and reexamining our supplemental duty schedule, which again would be brought back to the full board. But yeah, it wouldn't hurt to have, you want to have a couple individuals that assist that process, because whenever we would bid the insurance out of the broker, we would probably want individuals from the board to at least maybe be part of that process before we
Yeah.
brought a recommendation in that could kind of like sit in it as we kind of interview different vendors and different things.
I can help with that.
Okay, do you want to do it again? No. Well, and somebody can take mine too, because I'm not gonna be here very much longer.
But you will be all the way to the next time we decide these. Quit trying to get away from here. Anyone else? Anyone else would like to volunteer?
I'll do it. I don't, but
Write in
I
your
know
name.
John wanted.
Guys, that's fine. Guys, want to
Okay,
do it?
awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you both.
Those are the main ones. I know that we're not changing the newspaper. We've always used the Miami County Republic for any required advertisement or notice that we need to publish. That's basically based on, again, they are definitely the low cost for that. Our substitute teacher pay, 6 point, we're keeping that at the same rate as it was this past year. No increases there. And then we do have down there as well, if you all do want to work out, the site council approval, we don't have all of the individual members from each building because a lot of the principals will wait until with school year starts to see what parents they have in that, to appoint parents, but we can definitely, now would be the time if you wanted to kind of work out among yourselves who wants to kind of be the designee for a certain school or schools. And we can then compile that list. And then once we get all the names from the principals, we can compile it into one big list as well. But if you want to throw out some stuff now, we can definitely, Miss Rachel can take that down.
Okay, well, let's start the list. Spring Hill High School. I currently sit on that. I would love to keep it unless someone really feels like they'd like to come in.
Can I join you? Two of us can be there, right?
Absolutely. And one of us can serve as a parent too,
Yeah, I'll
either
just
way.
come as a parent.
So,
That works.
yeah, perfect. We'll just put April and Nicole. Awesome. All right, Spring Hill Middle School. I'm not sure who currently.
I'm
has-
currently serving that one and I'm willing to do it again unless somebody just really wants that insight. It's great functioning site council.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'll put you down. Forest Spring. I currently have that. I'm happy to keep it. I'm happy to give it up. I will say this, whoever sits on it, it's well-run and it's very different than any other site council you will sit on in our district. It's very great. So. Anyone? Okay, well, I will keep it. Woodland Spring.
I had it and I only got to sit in on one meeting, so I'd like to
Oh, need your
continue.
mic.
Yeah, I had it. So I'd like to continue.
Perfect. Prairie Creek.
And I also had that as well and would like to continue.
Yeah. Spring Hill Elementary.
That's me. That's me, and I would like to continue doing that.
Yep. All right. Let's see, Wolf Creek Elementary School. I don't know who.
I have that one.
Wanna,
But I wanted to switch to Timber Sage. I also have the Early Learning Academy, which
That's-
I don't see on here. Oh, yeah, it is on there. So I think April was interested in maybe, would you prefer Wolf Creek or the Early Learning Academy?
Either one, I'd be happy to take either one.
Awesome.
Okay, well, I'll just,
I'm willing to take another one if
Well,
you
that's-
want to offload.
We got a
okay.
few
I can
left.
do Wolf Creek if
Okay.
you don't want that one anymore.
I definitely want Timber Sage. I'm happy to do two if I need to.
I'll do Wolf Creek. That's fine.
Okay, Keith's got Wolf Creek, Anna's got Timber Sage. So we have Dayton Creek.
I'm currently doing Dayton Creek and I'm fine to keep it, but if somebody wants it, it's very well run as well.
Did you want the insight?
Yeah, I would do, since I'm already the liaison, I would do insight.
If you want to take
so
insight,
somebody-
I can take Dayton Creek.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay. So we have two left. I'm sorry, we do not. We have just Spring Hill Early Learning Academy.
And I think I'll take,
So you want that one as well?
I can take that one
Okay.
You want to do another
Is that
one?
3 for you?
too.
Oh, that's only 2. Okay. No, that's fine.
Unless you, I mean, we can both go too. We can alternate it or whatever.
Anybody?
Put
wanna-
April
if-
on that one.
Okay, if you
Okay.
want another one, because I have both insight and
Spring Hill.
Spring
Middle?
Hill Middle, if you want one of those.
It's okay.
Okay. Okay. I don't need to hog this council.
We always have someone that seems to have a lot of time. I think I've done 3 before and it's fun. And then it kind of switches the next year. So you have lots of time. Wonderful. Okay, so Sharon, can you help me through this? What's the next? We've kind of made all the decisions. Who,
Yes, so
Just
then.
need a
oh,
motion.
See if there's any questions on any of those items and then have a motion for approval.
so since some of these are resolutions, hold on, some
Oh,
of
and it
these are
has to be a
resolutions.
resolution. I
Do
got-
we have to
hold on.
read them in full?
Yep. Hold on. Hold on.
And there's 6 of them. Holy smokes.
Here's the resolutions.
No.
Does anyone have questions? Now, okay, help me through this, guys. Do we read the resolutions, approve them individually or?
No,
altogether?
you can just do one motion and it'll cover everything in the organizational items.
And we have to just read the resolutions as they're,
Yes.
and then one vote.
These need to be read in their entirety, correct?
Yes.
Because they're the resolutions.
I did not-
And then I'm not sure if you can read
Are,
chicken scratch.
I thought they could all just be one motion. Or do the resolutions have to be read? I mean, I would,
well, let's read them just so we don't run afoul, but I'll try to add my length to it. But Madam President, I move to improve what you've written down on this piece of paper here for the different appointments.
Oh, yeah, is there a second?
I'll second the piece of paper.
Fort Spring is covered.
Forest Spring is
Yep,
me.
okay.
Yes, thank you. We have a first or a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
So this is just for site councils.
Is this just for site councils? Everything except for resolutions? I mean, how would you like this to go, Rachel?
Everything should be covered in the one motion and 1 second, even as far as I'm concerned, as far as I'm aware.
Sure.
The resolutions.
So I think
So
what
you
we,
don't have to read them.
No.
Oh, we don't have to read them? Then, Madam President, I'd like to amend my previous motion to approve the organizational changes that we have made and noted down on that piece of paper, and to approve this stack of resolutions, including 6.01, 6.02, 6.03, 6.04, 6.05, 6.06, 6.07, 6.08, 6.09, 6.10, 6.11, 6.12, 6.13, 6.14, 6.15, 6.16, 6.17, and 6.18? Is that all of them?
No,
Is there more? Oh, sorry, it didn't keep going. 19, 6.19, 6.20, 6.21, 6.22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Is that all of them? I move we do that.
second.
awesome. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, Rachel, will you collect the vote?
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
approved.
Okay, so if next meeting it comes back that we needed to read those, will you let us know? Thank you. All right, moving on to 7.01, public participation. Rachel, did we have any?
No cards were presented.
Awesome, thank you very much. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, consisting of the approval of the consent agenda items, approval of the minutes, personnel, special education department services agreement, and the Greenbush invoice for parents as teachers program.
Can I just ask what that is? What is the Greenbush Parents as Teachers program?
Josh?
Parents as Teachers is a program that's open up to any family that has an infant, even that may not, that may not qualify even for the Early Learning Academy, for the early childhood special education services. It's basically any parent that wants to take advantage of that. And it's great, but it basically involves where a parent educator is, once the parent signs up, is assigned to a family, and they get so many visits annually for, 20, 30 minutes. It's just basically to kind of help them, kind of get not a head start so much, but just kind of make sure that they're kind of ready and on track for kindergarten when they get that age. They can also, in some instances, identify students like, this student, we probably need to try to get them into some speech services, whatever, maybe a little earlier, whatever, but it's totally optional. It's total, but it is something that, most districts do. But again, it's like anything, not, so we're paying for Greenbush. They have to do the ones controlling the staff and everything, and then do all the they're just kind of our party that does that.
We actually had them come the first couple kids, I think, then I got it figured out, I guess. But they'll hand out developmentally appropriate things so you can kind of track where your child is, or maybe be able to recognize some things that you need to watch for, that sort of thing. And sometimes they did play groups and that sort of thing.
Yeah, we had it with all of our kids too. Sue Ann, she was wonderful. I don't know if that's who was.
No. It's a long time ago.
But I had questions about this. I didn't realize that we paid, I thought it was I didn't know it was a service paid for by our district. And the 40, does that mean it's only 40 families that get to utilize the service? Is that what that means?
Yes.
Has it always been 40? Have we always paid for it?
No, the number has gone up over the years. I don't have that in front of me, but I could probably pull the invoices and see. But yeah, it's based on anticipated number of families that we might serve.
Like is it a percentage or like, how do we come up with that number?
You don't know. Is there a cap? Like you get so many and you're done, or you don't know?
That I'm not familiar with. I've never sat down and talked to anybody. I've seen the invoice. I made sure the invoice got paid, but I never talked to anybody as far as.
I wasn't.
Typically, it's based on the number of families that have been accessing it. And in most places, you have more families that would like to access it than they can staff and provide support for.
Yeah.
So
I don't ever remember seeing this invoice, so that's, I didn't know.
Yeah, this is the first time that it's been, it has never been brought, and we caught that this year because with, trying to make sure that all of our policies and everything are followed and contracts are brought forward. And so this was the one that, we said, this one hasn't come and we probably needs to. And so that's put it in.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. Any other questions?
Madam President, I move for approval of the consent agenda.
I'll get there, guys. We,
second.
thank you. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any other further discussion? All right, Rachel, collect the vote.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Hole,
Yes.
approved.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we have an action item 9.1, policy updates.
We went over several policy recommendations at our last meeting, and we also then, I think, sent out some follow-up to some questions. But anyway, Dr. Robinson's here. If you don't have any additional questions on the policy updates, I know that I think we sent it that we did that you, Josh, you want to send them about the Title IX that we.
Yeah, I was just going to mention a couple things, probably the biggest one being, if you saw your agenda change today, on July 2nd, a district court granted the Attorney General in Kansas, along with, I think, 3 or 4 other states, an injunction related to Title IX. We had held 3 of the 4 policies, but after discussing it today, GARIA was the only other one that's impacted by Title IX changes. And rather than risking you approving a policy, then us having to come back and make a change, I pulled it back. So it's not on the recommended list for approval tonight. Other than that, I sent you through Rachel answers to questions that came up at the last meeting. I'll highlight just a couple of those. One of those had to do with our virtual school and students outside of the state of Kansas. It's already in our virtual schools handbook and policies that they don't allow it. And part of that is because there's no funding. They're not included in the count in any way if they're part of a virtual school. And they live outside of the state of Kansas. So we would essentially be providing education completely free. If they are an employee, based on the changes to policy JBCC, if an employee brings their student to one of our brick and mortar schools, it would allow us to still enroll them, which I think is a positive still for our staff and being able to recruit the best staff. And we do get some funding. We get half FTE for out-of-state students who attend within our district. Essentially, that part of the policy was trying to make sure that the new rights related to non-resident student enrollment was granted to Kansas residents and not to everybody. The only other thing I was going to mention, there was a question about the appeal process. It does grant, if we don't enroll a student because we deem that they weren't a student in good standing in their previous district, they do have an appeal right. And part of that is, or at least it's not in statute, but it's in the policy recommendation. And part of that is we would be getting information from another party and them being given a chance to dispute the information that we receive. Students who are currently enrolled but living out of district, if we determine they're not a student in good standing, they aren't granted an appeal. And part of that is because if it's done based on attendance or just when there are other places within the process that
they should be given a due process opportunity to dispute whether they're a student in good standing. What I would tell you is everybody has the option to speak to the board and they can still do those things. But as far as in the policy, I would recommend that it stays the way it is. And the only other question I think Keith asked, which was a good clarification question about the change to virtual school students in policy JH and allowing them to participate in activities is only if they are a resident within the Spring Hill School District. They could attend our virtual school and participate in activities in their home district. But as far as opening up our activities, the only other thing I would mention, policy EE, which is the food service. We discussed fees for a while last year. We're not bringing a recommendation to make that change tonight. We're still working with our nutrition services director on what the best course of action might be. The only change we've got in tonight's recommendation is removing the federal waiver that was related to the pandemic and removing that language since the waiver is no longer part of federal law. So everything else we covered last time, but it's more policies than I think we've done in the past, but I think the majority of them are due to statutory changes. But if you have other questions, I'm happy to try to answer.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Robinson. Any other questions? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move to approve 9.01 as presented by Dr. Robinson.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, Rachel, please collect the vote.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Hole,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
approved.
Awesome. Thank you very much. On to 9.2, revenue neutral rate intent.
Yes, this is the form that this will be the third year that districts and taxing entities have had to complete this form. It is not necessarily binding because we will still have the budget hearing and as well as to set the mill rate, come in August, September. This is just so that the county can do their due diligence and then publishing all the taxing entities' proposed plan in terms of what they plan to do in terms of their mill rate. And so, again, Mr. Swin last meeting gave, as he says every year, the challenges of especially a growing school district like Spring Hill actually being able to go revenue neutral. And so what we're asking for after tonight is just simply to approve and take action on the revenue neutral intent form so that that can get signed and sent back to the counties because they have a deadline on that. And then they publish that in the papers and then send notices to people. And so then Mr. Swin, if you have any additional comments you want to add about that tonight.
Yeah, no, you explained it very well. The proposed levy that we're going to submit to the county would essentially keep things flat heading into the new year. Now that's just the lid. When we put the budget together, we're going to look and see if there's any opportunities to actually lower the mill levy, but to be revenue neutral is not attainable in my opinion. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
The Recreation Commission Fund, for some reason in my head, it was 3.5, not 3.05, but maybe I'm just misremembering.
I believe they have the authority to go up to 3.5, but what they chose to levy was 3.05.
Okay, that's okay.
It's a combination of two levies added together. I believe it was 2.6 for the rec commission and then the rec employee benefits fund was 0.45.
Okay. Somewhere in my head, it was 3.5 because anyway.
And I think there was a year it was 3.5 because they were levying the max and then they reduced it a little bit.
Okay. I didn't know.
But that's been a little while.
Okay.
All right, any other comments or thoughts? Right, if not, I would entertain a motion.
Madam President, I move to approve 9.02 as presented by Mr. Schwinn.
Thank-
Second.
Awesome. There's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Rachel, please call a vote.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Hole,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
approved.
Thank you. On to discussion items. 10.01, Spring Hill Sports Live contract.
Yes, Spring Hill Sports Live is the organization that streams many of our events. They basically come into the community and will sell advertising to vendors, businesses, and then they have select number of activities, events that they will stream on their network. As to the cost of the district, there is no cost. It permits them to sell the advertising. Mr. Harris is going to be here this evening. He has not arrived yet. I'm sure that the new time may have thrown him off a little bit, but he is coming. And so I would suggest that if we want to just move down to the next item, and then whenever he gets here, when we have a break, we can pop back up to this item. But again, this is, we've used this one for several years. They do a good service, but he'll be happy to answer questions and give you any new insight as to maybe any new things that they might be doing with this service this year.
Okay, well, do we need to move it in the agenda? Can we just come back to it?
We can just come back to it.
Okay,
Yes.
let's move on to 10.02, first option bank credit card.
This is, again, Mr. Swin. One of the things that as we've grown through the years, Main Street Credit Union has been our or a vendor that we've had a credit card or a line of credit with, and we've used this whenever many of our teams, clubs go on a trip and they have to maybe buy meals, they have to do lodging. But again, like any credit card, there's a maximum. And because of the fact that they're corporate, they have limits on what they can do. We've kind of outgrown the max that they allow. And so Mr. Swin is going to take a moment and kind of highlight the reason as to why we feel it's time to maybe transition away from our current credit card vendor, Main Street, and go with a different vendor. So Mr. Swin, feel free to share what you would like.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I don't want us to get rid of Main Street Credit Union. This would be in addition to Main Street Credit Union. Now, after a year, if we really like the first option program, then we'll reevaluate and see about maybe consolidating into one. I can't tell you why we chose Main Street Credit Union because it's been a long, long time. My guess is at that time, they may have been the only one in the area that had a credit card that they offered. So they've been a really good sponsor for the district. I know they've sponsored breakfasts and other events for us, and they usually have representation show up and hand out gift cards to staff. So they've been a really good partner. They've been pretty good to work with. It's just that with our growth, we've ran into a couple of challenges that get bigger and bigger every year. And we asked them to be flexible and they were unable to. So we started looking around, and Chad Lewis at First Option Bank said he thought that they had a credit card program that we might be interested in. So we met with him, myself, and then Laura Worthen, who's our accounts payable clerk. And we liked what they had to say, especially when they offered the 1% cash back, which we're not currently getting on our Main Street Credit Union card. So our proposal would be to go ahead and issue a line of credit up to $250,000. We would control the number of cards. and the balances on those cards, which is a nice feature. So if we do have a large group traveling and we think there's going to be multiple transactions, we can set all those thresholds in advance so that they don't go somewhere and the card rejects. Nice to have that control feature. And so we'd like to try it out. I think it's going to alleviate a lot of headaches, not only for my staff, but those that use our credit card. And it's supporting a local vendor who's been very good to work with. So that is our recommendation at this time, and I'll answer any questions you might have.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah. So is this card coming, this looks just like a traditional product. Did they talk to you at all about a purchase card product, or what's commonly referred to as a P card? Basically getting, so everybody else is on the same page. It gets more granular detail for merchants who provide additional information, such as if it's hotels nights, they might say hotels and hotel nights and all that kind of good stuff.
This isn't a P card program. I know there's some districts in our area that do have P card programs, where basically every employee carries their own P card and travels with it. My payroll clerk came from another district that had a P card program, and she has horror stories about it.
She didn't like it.
Couldn't stand it. Yeah. She might walk on me if I suggested doing a P card program. So, but they can work. It takes a lot of man hours or woman hours to manage it, or at least it did in our former district. But this is just a business line of credit. And I think as far as the details go, we'll have plenty of transactional details to go through and filter and do all that kind of stuff. Plus, we require everybody bring back the receipt, so we'll always have all the receipts to look at that are itemized, so we know what's being charged.
Yeah, no, it's this is the part of the background I come from, and that's kind of where, if we're making this move, it certainly sounds like they had a bad experience with the purchase card, but it does provide some more granular control and information that we may enjoy in the future. Not that I'm opposed to this. I'm not. It's, what's our monthly credit card spend looking like right now?
Oh, across all cards with Main Street Credit Union. That's a tough one.
Ballpark.
Probably 40 to maybe 50,000 average on a month,
Okay.
with everybody traveling to conferences, a lot of the registrations, airline tickets, hotel rooms, meals. I know last month was pretty busy because we had, our kids did fantastic and qualified for state and track and baseball and softball, and all that got charged to credit cards. So.
Okay. So we're doing a little more than $500,000, 600K a year.
Could be, yes.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up to be absolute, but that gets us in the ballpark, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and Doug, is the plan to, because of the 1% spiff, right? The kickback. I mean, that's incredibly attractive. Is it our intention then to just kind of move everything over there? I mean, we keep the other one as a safety net, but.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking
Right,
at.
because I mean, at 50 grand a month, that's six grand saved over the course of the year.
It's pretty inviting, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, if we have a good experience with it, I do think the recommendation a year from now will be, let's just move it all to the first option bank credit card.
Well, and that's kind of one of my questions on, having daily transaction limits. Is it what we're using now, a debit card?
No, it's a credit card. But that's just their
Okay.
card and their limitations. So yeah, 9 transactions per day. So what we had was a lot of time when sporting teams went places, they would charge each of the individual rooms as 1 transaction. And so it would cause the card to reject on room number 10. So then the coach would have to go back and say, hey, can we lump these all together as one transaction? And usually the hotels would go, okay, if that's what you need, let's do it. It's just a hassle.
Yeah, I'm surprised and amazed you've made it this far with that, to be quite honest. I absolutely shocked.
Yeah, it's been frustrating, and that's why we're here.
Great, then I'll move to approve 10.02 if nobody has any more.
I have a
discussion.
question.
Okay.
Mine is not necessarily about the credit card program. It's more about our partnership with Main Street Credit Union.
Yeah.
So they sponsor things for Chef, they sponsor breakfast, they give gift cards, they do all that. So are we planning to take the savings, the 1% savings and earmark that? And First Option is a great partner with us as well. But I'm not sure if we can go to them and say, hey, we're going to do this and we want you to fill in the gaps maybe where a Main Street Credit Union won't anymore. Are we planning to earmark some of that for some of the benefits we see from them?
We certainly could. I know we've made some changes with our year end and opening year activities. And as we grow, that could change to where maybe we're not doing a breakfast for all staff. I don't know. But yeah, with us having that money, if we decide, yes, we want those things to continue that they sponsored, that'd be a nice, and I think that's why they were sponsored. Instead of giving us the 1% cash back, they thought, well, let's, use it to promote ourselves, and they've been very generous, but
Doug, isn't also Main Street Credit Union like the credit union, Teachers Credit Union? So they're also
they cater to
promoting
teachers.
that. They do promotional things specifically for teachers with low interest loans and some things like that.
Yeah, I believe I recall them used to have like a $1,000 loan that was interest free for 12 months to kind of just get them kick started for the year. And I don't know how many teachers took advantage of it. I never did hear any numbers, but yes, they do.
I think traditionally they've kind of been the Teachers Credit Union.
Yes, that's kind of their niche.
All right. Well, any further discussion? If not, I entertain a motion.
Well, this is just a discussion
Oh,
item.
just-
We're in no hurry. We're in no hurry. So think on it. If you have more questions, reach out to me if you need more details on the program. But we'll bring it back next meeting for an action.
Actually, I do have one more. I'm sorry, something popped in my brain. We're issuing this under our credit. Different organizations do this differently and ask the actual cardholder. So if they issued Sharon a card, they would actually ask her to fill out an additional credit app or have it show up on their credit report. I don't believe that you're proposing to do that. I'm just wanting to say out loud, we're not making this part of people's credit. We're not asking them to undersign under it or anything.
Correct. These aren't personalized cards. They won't have employee names on it, and they won't have to go through any credit check. So.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. No further discussion? Okay. Let's hop back to 10.01, the Spring Hill Sports Live contract, if that's okay with everyone. I see BJ's here.
Sheepishly walking to the podium.
We start at 6 now.
I was about to be 15 minutes early to a 7 o'clock meeting. And thank you for reaching out, Dr. Luttrell. I apologize for my tardiness. I appreciate the opportunity as always to come and talk to you guys about Spring Hill Sports Live. I apologize for the pipes. I'm running low on voice right now, but it was another successful year this last year. We covered a lot of events, took some of the advice I got from you guys, and we did add more volleyball coverage, which is certainly easy to add with our impressive volleyball program. And then still trying to overcome some internet obstacles, the baseball softball field, but I'm hopeful we can work through that. I'm looking for options in a lot of baseball softball fields in the venues we work with. And so I would like to make that coverage a little more robust in the future. But the contract you have is the same as we've done in the past. 40 broadcasts, continue to cover the sports the way we do. The slight change that you'll see in there is Acacia did add and create a preferred partner program that they're piloting right now. That was due to much back end legislation on the broadcasters' parts like mine. That's not necessarily what we expected. In fact, what we expected was a law that was passed in 2023 that Acacia is just simply not adhering to. And so they've implemented this partner program as a way to try to suffice the broadcasters like myself that do provide live streaming video. And essentially what it does, it allows us to cover a minimum number of games of a certain sport and then have access to that game and that team in the postseason to cover them, which is something we haven't had that access in the past. They've been able to kind of block us out. The most poignant and infuriating example of that was when we traveled to Mill Valley to broadcast a Bronco football game, and Keisha made a contact to the AD to pull us out of the press box and not allow us to broadcast that game. So we've worked really hard to make sure that never happens again. And I think we've got a plan now, at least, that we're going to be able to cover your teams into the postseason further than we have in the past. And we put together some plans with that. A few other things you'll probably start to see from us. And as always, and I'll tell, since we do have new board members from Spring Hill Sports Live, that Spring Hill was the first real community we expanded to, thinking that we had no expansion. Was not part of my plan. I was planning to be the voice of the Trojans, Girard, Kansas forever, moved my family to Spring Hill so my wife could pursue her teaching career, and talked with Mrs. Mitchell in the chamber office one day and thought maybe this could work in Spring Hill. And it did. So well so then when the pandemic happened, we were in a position to expand to then Paola, Lewisburg, Tonganoxie. This last year, we broadcasted for 10 high schools and then picked up the contract to be the broadcast partner for Johnson County Community College as well. And so that's the most exciting thing. We've certainly added this last year because we get to take our kids that we cover night in and night out into their next maturation, which was cool because we've got Spring Hill softball players we covered this year. We've got just kids across our network that are going to the next level, and gave an opportunity to a kid that I'd hired when he was right out of high school, went through college, and then gave him his first full-time job to be able to be the voice of the Cavaliers and do some other stuff for us. So we've really leaned heavily on that opportunity that was provided to us from Spring Hill and implemented that into multiple other communities across Eastern Kansas. And so with that, we're starting to really develop that network and varsitysportslive.com. And we've entered into an agreement with Huddle to provide a platform at our website that all those broadcasts will be available all the time as well. We'll continue to distribute to YouTube, but you're going to see a lot more marketing and promotion of varsitysportslive.com as a home for all those. Everybody will have their own page within that to go watch their sports. So really excited about that. Continue to do cool things too. Had a meeting this morning with Ezra Baker about coming to work and do some video production stuff. And so that's probably the most rewarding part of what we've been able to do with this network is provide opportunities for people to pursue that broadcasting dream that I watched fizzle away as I was trying to chase that same dream. And so just because we're creating the content we're creating, we're able to provide those opportunities. And Ezra's a super talented kid. We put some of his stuff on our broadcast last year. And so he's coming out of high school ready to go. And we want to give him those chances. And so this is obviously one piece of that whole thing I gave you, but it's a big piece because of all that foundational support that we've gotten. So that I'll answer any questions you might have or suggestions, or if you want to come broadcast, I got a job for you.
I have just one question. I know you guys have provided a huge service by streaming the graduation for Spring Hill.
Yeah.
I didn't see it in there. Is that just?
We just
You just
that.
do that? Okay,
Yep.
that's amazing.
Yep.
Thank you.
Best broadcast of the year.
Definitely stops a
Most
lot of
watched.
Family Feud, that's for
And
sure.
we do the Insight School as well. Graduation.
It really is a service. And I know when our kids were doing sports, my parents are in their 90s and they're 300 miles away, and they never would have gotten down here to see them play. And so this whole thing just really holds a special place in my heart because they're just, they're not all the same. So we've watched our nephew, Olathe the South, and the broadcasts are not anywhere near this quality. So
You said it, not me.
and you have to pay, most of the schools that do that, NFHS or whatever, you have to pay a subscription to watch your kids play. So this is just truly a community-based, community-supported thing. So it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we base it on the support of the community, and so far the community said we want this to continue in this community. And so, and I'm coming to you with this contract, but the business community has already told us we're done with that part. So for the most part, and they've told us they want to see it again this next year. And I'm excited to get it going as well. Hopefully my voice comes back by then.
Well, hopefully it does. One of the things I love and is so important to me is kids getting to hear their names pronounced correctly. So thank you.
Yeah.
Keanu Tiafao.
Yeah, oh boy, that was good. I had a couple misses on that one, I'll be honest with you.
No, you got there.
Early, when he first started playing.
Yeah.
And we miss them from time to time. And I will tell you, and that's the number one thing my broadcasters hear from me is get the names right, because that was told to me when I was 19 years old coming
Yeah,
up.
it's great, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you making the progress on, bringing parity in the sports that we're covering. Even though we're not obligated under Title IX, we do want to do that. Has the viewership kept up? I mean, is it paying dividends on your end?
Yeah, and it's twofold. Obviously, the advertising value is there, I think, and certainly we keep the price point there to where it's a value to the advertiser. Most of our advertisers understand the benefit that it provides for the community outside of that advertising. And so while our viewership is important, we drive that as home, but we know the viewers are the viewers that are watching and they're passionate, and that's the most important thing. Is that those viewers, and we have that product there for them every time they want to come watch it. And we told them we're going to be there to do it. So I would say last year we went out over 500 times with our crews, and we probably didn't get it on the air 4 or 5 times. So.
Yeah. And one of your goals in covering, sports of both genders, you were trying to get to parity. Do you feel like you've reached, I'm not counting your.
Yeah, if you do count them, it actually is, we're probably overall hedging a little bit female because of basketball being double headers and having girls and boys in there. And then wrestling, we cover all the girls wrestling. We covered the entire girls wrestling tournament. And I would venture to guess you'd be hard pressed to find another broadcaster in the state of Kansas that did that. And then, volleyball, we picked up more volleyball, so that helped balance out a little bit of parity. We could fix that completely if we're able to get out to softball and be more consistent with that coverage. So we'll keep working on the internet.
No, and that's kind of where I wanted to go, is just to say congratulations. I mean, it's not someplace that you had to be, but I know you got asked by the previous board to get to a place of parity.
Yep.
And represent, and you did it. So kudos.
The original board members that I brought this to, who include one, were the first board that had ever asked me that had ever brought that up. And so I've always, every time I've taken it since then, it was not one of those foundational nuggets that I grabbed here, that I've made sure that everything we've done since then has included that and been built upon that. So I appreciate that. And I will, because I don't do this real often, but we do make a real good point, because we're, taking advantage of the business community, that we give back as much as we can. And so we provide free advertising to Chef. Now that's become a little bit of a side gig on its own, but we provide advertising to Chef. We gave to the FFA, theater department. And so we're donating some of our own company money back into this community as well, on top of the service that we're really trying to work hard to provide.
BJ, early on, you said something about, is it a technical issue that you have with baseball and softball?
You get some Wi-Fi out there.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Real strong Wi-Fi. So pull some cable out there. I'll meet you. And we'll go.
You don't need cable. I do have a solution for you.
Okay.
We can get it there wirelessly. Yeah.
Get it done. Be awesome. So yeah, any other questions?
Just wondering if this will come back next.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Can this come back on the consent agenda?
Yep.
Are we all? Yeah,
Anyone have questions that they would want asked? I will say this, I'm the one who always brings up the men's and women's equality there. And I'd love to know how many you actually did. I always ask that. You can email us or email Rachel and have it sent if you'd like, but I always want to know what actually happened. I know that weather gets in there and all sorts of stuff, but man, we have some great sports, and it'd be awesome to see some more out there. Our volleyball's killing it. Our baseball and softball are killing it. Honestly, wrestling is killing it. Like, all of our sports have been doing amazing.
And some of that comes, I mean, the 40 broadcasts is set up as what can this community support, and what can I get done with that support? And so we could do 80 broadcasts, but then you double that advertising need from our community. And then I'd also need to find somebody to cover 80 broadcasts and do it at the level that we expect. And so really, I would expect us, I would hope, if we continue the direction we're going, that could maybe be 10 more next year, and then see how that goes. And the other thing that I don't figure up, and it's not included in this, but I did last year when I brought that presentation in, was the crossover sports. And so when you look at, when we cover Lewisburg softball playing Spring Hill, that counts. We do, and that that has only grown and there's another body of you trying to decide another school right now. That if that comes to fruition, then it's just going to expand that even more. And so I think that I could go, I'll go figure that out for you.
I find it really interesting and do you have community support to add 10 or add 20 or, I mean, have you seen that already? You said you're pretty much there with this year's sponsorship.
Yeah, I think so. I think, but start shifting business model just a hair to get to that point. And so that's one of the reasons we're looking at the expansion of the schools we're looking at, because there's a chance that we're really not missing that many games. If you look at, we cover say three baseball games from all this Frontier League schools. Well, suddenly there's only about 10 we're not.
Yeah.
And so you could really look at every sports schedule that way pretty easily. And so I'm hopeful that there's something like that could come to fruition with the number of schools we have going right now. Where really that's not that many. In fact, the school we're looking at, I had my employee go figure out how many games did we actually do of theirs, and it was still like 20. That they were featured one of the teams we covered because they were playing one of our teams. And so.
Well, I noticed there's a couple sports not on here. Golf, you don't need to comment. That's track, cross country. But the one that's not on here that I'm surprised is tennis.
Doug Schwinn's hit me up on that one more than a couple of times.
Our girls tennis and boys, they're growing by leaps and bounds.
Is this a retirement job offer that's happening right now in front of us?
He told me 40 love, and I hired him right there on the spot. So I would love to. I'd like to take a crack at tennis. That'd be fun. I mean, everything we do when we do that is novel because I don't know how to cover tennis.
That's okay. I wondered, I was like, what's the obstacle here?
Yeah,
I could
but
see
I
some
don't know anything about
challenges with
soccer
tennis.
either. And we do really good soccer coverage because I found guys who know soccer. And I was riding out on the golf cart with Mrs. Mitchell's husband at our golf tournament, and I got a text message about somebody wanting us to cover the Kansas State lacrosse championship, and found out at that moment that his nephews were college lacrosse players. So we can find broadcasters from time to time. We didn't get that one done, but I wanted to. So I'm willing to take a chance and take a shot at covering something. We know enough about covering sports that we can get it done, but finding somebody who knows how to talk about tennis, cover it, make it look right. You're talking about something that's going to require quite a few cameras probably to get it done right.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
I'm into it. Host a regional maybe.
Maybe just some ideas for next year. The other thing is.
And I'm not off golf yet either. I think there's a way to get that done, but
That's awesome. The other thing is swimming. We just got a swimming team last year, and it's kind of a co-ed, so it could be multiple of your customers.
I don't think it's co-ed, but it's
school. What's it?
It's a
Co-op.
co-op.
I'm so
Yeah.
sorry.
I had to ask, there's a spring
Thank you.
season, a summer and a.
Wrong word there. Co-op.
I'm just I'll go get my underwater camera. I'm open to anything, and I would. I mean, you even get to the state level, they have a hard time finding people to cover those events. And so I'm always looking at developing something that we can cover those events. So maybe we're the ones that go cover those types of events.
And one more, we just got a men's volleyball team this year. So put that on your list.
That would be awesome. And those guys are pretty good at it, I think, that are doing it. So, hey, I want to broadcast the theater productions, but they won't let us. So,
Wow. Yeah. Okay, wonderful. Well, any other thoughts, questions? Anyone against putting it on the consent agenda for next week? Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm available. Appreciate it. Sorry for my phone.
All right, on to 10.03 Spring Hill High School asphalt repairs.
Part of one of our summer projects involved some asphalt work across the district. Mainly, the biggest parking lot was Spring Hill High School. And as with any project, sometimes, things come up during the project that cause to kind of pause and make sure that we're going to do this right. We're going to make some adjustments. Most of the time, those adjustments do mean increased costs. And so we have run into some challenges at that project. And so here this evening to kind of give us a synopsis of what the challenges are and what the recommendation is to propose those, as well as give you an opportunity to ask questions. Mr. Meek, and as well as the engineer, on that project. And then we do, like I said, ideally, this project has to be moved forward because it's too far along. We have to, and we're on a time frame. And so we really are asking that after we do all this, at least there would be a decision as to approve or not, the change order that we're in terms of how we want to address this so that we can keep moving forward. Because if we lose 2 weeks of work because we don't know what we're going to do, that's going to put us in a bind. So, but let's listen to Tim first, and we'll kind of, like I said, hopefully be able to provide everyone with enough insight that they can make an informed decision.
All right, good evening. I was informed earlier that this might be deja vu for Sharon Mitchell. I think her first meeting we did an area of the high school parking lot, and this was kind of the subject of one of those things in that meeting. So nobody's first meeting, so you didn't get that milestone, but this morning they had milled several areas at Spring Hill High School parking lot. Those of you that have kids there and have tried to drive through it have seen how much has been going on there. And in that, some areas, as they milled them, they were breaking through not only the area that they were milling, but they were breaking through the substrate for the rest of the asphalt that was below it. Well, that's not a good thing because you can't just do that. We brought the milling machine in, went ahead and did a full depth milling in a couple of areas and found that the substructure underneath the asphalt was wet. So that means that that's wet and will not support that. So we've got to do some amendments to that in order to continue with the asphalt project. So, and if there's any technical questions, that's why I have Gary lead with Caw Valley here. He can answer those. We did do some, and Gary, if I'm saying something wrong, please come up here and tap me on the shoulder and tell me to get out of the way so you can talk right. But we did borings of all of these back in late January. There were some areas that we caught at that point that needed to be full depth, and we adequately accounted for those. But some of the other ones did not show up, that the profile of the soil below the asphalt was wet at that time. So, and it can be seasonal based on rain. We just had a large amount of rain here in the last week or so. I can't say that if we'd done this in early July or June when it was very dry that we wouldn't have had it. We could have several years back in what year did you come on? 2017, 2013. Okay. So 2013, it's been longer than I thought. When we did the first section of Spring Hill High School, it was not just the top couple of inches. It was almost a foot of soil that was had to be taken out and replaced with some other soil plus level of AB3 substrate to get it to do. It's not an ideal thing, but the bad part about this is sometimes you just cannot know until you get in there. So tonight we're coming to ask, and we'll have an action item later. We normally would give you some time, but right now we've got a parking lot that's got to get done for school. If we wait 2 weeks, number one, it's opened up. It'll only going to get worse. And we really can't take that. Plus number two, we wouldn't have it done in time if we wait another 2 weeks to go for it. So the amounts that we're asking for, and let me pull up a map here real quick. And for those of you that can see it on your screen, the two areas that we know of right now, area 1 and area 2. Those are the areas that we've milled out. We've milled out several other areas, all of the drives and stuff we've milled out. They're coming back fine. We're ready to lay asphalt on those. Couple of things about driveways is they're not a 6-inch asphalt. Normally they're 8 to 10 inches of asphalt. So therefore you got a lot more structure there above it, and that will still stay together. If you go down, it's like a board. If you have a 1-inch board, how easy it is to break. If you got a 4x4, it's really hard to break a 4x4. So, a thicker board. So the thicker your asphalt is, the harder it is to break through. But in those parking lot areas, that's your thinnest asphalt. And so those are areas. One is the amount of, and my $60,875. Then area 2 on that map, that's the larger, the area just to the left of area 2 is the part that we did back in 2013. That's part of the original parking lot there. And if I remember right, we well more than doubled the amount of our bid on that, unfortunately, back then. Because like I said, it was a lot of work. We had a lot of material to haul off and bring back in new areas. So area 3, 4, and 5. 3, we haven't touched yet because that's where the kids are parking for all the activities and stuff. This is a multi phase project. So we don't know for sure on area 3. We've got a contingency number in case we have to go full depth that we later will be asking for you to approve, just because if we don't, again, we've got to have you guys either come back in for a special meeting or it's got to hold for until the next board meeting. So area 4 is the same thing. We haven't got into that. Area 5, there is a number there. We have done some test milling on that, and it seems to be holding up. It also, though, is because the loading dock is there, it is a thicker asphalt. So again, we don't believe we'll have the problems there. We included a little bit of contingency because some of the parking areas that are in there, if we start getting in and milling in there, we may have to go in and address a couple of smaller areas in there. So again, it's kind of my quick overview. Any questions? I'm sure there might be one or two.
So you have 2 options for, I guess, area 2.
Area 2, yeah, one of them's really not an option to me. Yeah, I could go in and try to smooth it out and try to overlay it, but even at that, most likely when I put a full load of asphalt, I'd be probably having to do half loads of asphalt or greater, and that's going to increase my cost to do that. And it's not a good product. You know, we'll probably be back here in a couple, 2 or 3 years asking you, hey, would you like to redo this again? So we put that cost in there just so you know.
Because that number's way better.
It's way better. I'd much rather spend that to start with. So yeah, it was just a number of what would it take to go ahead and roll this and to repair a couple of minor areas that we pumped really hard and have broken through. We've got some areas there. If we were to pave, we might have, even after we roll it, we might have an inch of asphalt in one area and 3 inches in another, just because of the way the ruts are put into it, even after we roll it back and try to pack it in. So again, your substrate's still going to be bad.
Those prices cover the removal of the bad material underneath, compacting back AB3. What happens if you have to go down a foot as opposed to 6 inches?
Well, right now, how we're
based upon what we've seen, the 8 inches of AB3, under 8 inches of asphalt is going to get us well beyond the soft. Within that stratum, in the initial full depth mill, is the top 3 inches is really the soft, but we're taking more.
We're actually going down 16 inches already. And if we have to, I mean, there's already some dollars built into that for working that fatty clay that's there. If it's a little wet, we can disc it, we can do working it up and try to let it dry out. That's a common practice, even on a brand new site. You'll disc it up, you'll let it dry, you'll open it up so it can dry out, then you roll it back in. And once we get it past a proof roll, which a proof roll is when you drive a loaded truck over it and it doesn't make a rut anymore, for lack of a better way. It's a little less than a rut, but you don't see it pump. So I'm trying to put it in a little bit more layman's terms too.
Sure. I just want to back up. So what's the thickness that you said that we're taking off in area 2 or have already taken it off? Because you were making the distinction between, oh, it's the loading dock and it's got a 10-inch overlay instead of a X. And so
this is a 6-inch pavement.
The mic for the public, please.
This is a 6-inch pavement today.
Yeah,
So we take off the top two, the bottom four can't support the load
right.
with the softer subgrade. We're going back with an 8.
Okay, so we're putting 8 back on top of instead of
On top of,
6.
on
So
top
we-
of 8 inches of AB3 as well, so.
Yes. So
Right, so what's our confidence interval when my predecessor
in
is
25
here,
years-
insurance?
In 25 years, you're going to be able to mill off the top 2 inches and not have to revisit this problem again.
Okay. This is a bad problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will not, Gary's pretty confident. I won't guarantee that. I've been around this part of the country too long that, I've seen people that have done that. You're gonna get quite a little life out of it. I don't know, 25 years, but, you know, we're the 2013, we're 11 years into the lower part of that. It's still in pretty good shape. So, I mean, obviously you got some cracks and a few minor things in there, but you can take care of that with just regular maintenance of crack sealing and things like that.
Well, and kind of where I'm going is, we're saying 8, and I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but we're going 8, but areas 3 and 2 there, they get the lion's share of the abuse. That is where everybody's parking all the time. And if we're going to spend more money, and I hate spending little amounts of money only to come back and spend little amounts of money again. This is not a little amount of money, but you get where I'm going.
This is already above what we would normally put in to begin with. Normally, we're doing a 4-inch with a 2-inch top layer in parking lot areas anyway. But we're also doing it all over AB3 nowadays too. So you've got a pretty good compacted substrate there to rest on. So yeah, before they were just using the clays, compacting it, and then they were laying the asphalt over the top of it. It's still dirt, no matter how you want to say it. Clay is better than topsoil, whatever, but it's still a dirt, and it's much more susceptible to moisture.
So, kind of moving forward, because a lot of people in this room probably won't still be here when anything needs to be done again. Is there some way on the front end to make sure that the whatever testing that you do is more accurate, or so that you can
We
avoid this in the future?
we come out and we core drill the pavements to make sure that, on the surface, you don't have 3 inches of pavement, and I'm going to show up and mill off the top 2. Milling machine, dump truck, regardless of what your subgrade is going to drop through that. So we show up to make sure that you've got enough section of asphalt to logistically remove the top 2 inches, put a new wearing surface on, and still have the structure. Could we come out the day before they milled and do a test? Well, we're still after a bid date. We're still after a contract award. I could try to do this a year prior, but last July's moisture was not the same as this July. There's no perfect solution. There really isn't.
And you do a moisture test of that area as well.
Yeah.
When you do the core, but again,
We've used water to core that, the
Mhm.
coring machine. So we have to use some judgment as to how much water you pull out of the sample that's present in the sample that you introduced
Mhm.
as part of that as well.
and the specs show the bid documents actually have that in there, and so they know where the cores were pulled, the contractors do, and all that. And they show the amount of moisture in that at the time that the cores were done was an acceptable amount. So, you're gonna have moisture in
I
all
guess I'm
soils.
just thinking with our history.
Yeah.
that how can we make sure that we're kind of planning for some of this a little bit more than just surprise?
Well, Gary and I have already talked about that. If we were to do another section, let's say in 5 years, the area to the right of area 1 and north of area 2, if we're gonna come in and do that, we're gonna just say full depth.
Mhm.
And we'll need to pass that along. Kylie is involved. Kylie was the one that brought this to you to begin with. He's on vacation I wasn't gonna make him get on a Zoom call while I was on vacation and
I bet he would
And,
love that.
I think he would have loved it. His wife would have probably killed me for ruining their vacation. I have not even told him yet. I will tell him later. I want to make sure that we get through it. I've been there, done that, so I don't want to have his wife be like my wife has been on a vacation. Why are you even here? Why don't you get home? So just FYI for you, sorry.
So I just want to, originally we had approved this project at $123,000. Is that correct?
No, this was 604,000.
700 and,
700 was the total.
yeah.
It was both lots. It was 100 and change.
$607,305 for the high school, $114,110 at Prairie Creek.
Hold on, can you say those again? I'm sorry.
$607 or $607. I wish. $607,305.04.
Okay.
And then the Prairie Creek one was $114,110.
I'm trying.
Here's the numbers.
Thank you. Where did this come from?
I pulled it from the old agenda and brought it with me, so I'd have the numbers.
Oh, okay.
Huh?
It was in the bag.
No, I
Um,
printed this before today's meeting, but it
And
could have
and I'm
been.
asking because I'm trying to understand your change request.
Our change request is for area 1 and 2 is a full change request.
Okay.
Area 3, we really didn't want to mill now. We're planning to come back and mobilize. The area to the left of area 3 is already a full depth because from the core of that one, we noticed that it was not acceptable. The pavement was not acceptable for a mill and overlay. So we've already got that for a full depth. And again, the drive lanes around there, there are a few little exceptions where we've had to do a small cutout and which is not unusual to have to do a small area the size of a bobcat or something like that in an area because it just didn't take the milling. So we've got a few of those that we'll take care of as well. But most of the drive lanes that are thicker have milled great and are ready for the pavement without any additional work to them. So then area 3, 4, and 5, that's what the other contingency amounts, the 228,510. I'm asking for that contingency just so that we, Kylie and I, can manage it. Again, the worst thing that can happen, I think, is that, well, it's not the worst thing because it would be up to you guys to try to have an emergency meeting and give us the permission to go ahead and do it if we need to. We will manage it just like we always have most all of our projects. My worst fear and worst nightmares come from having to come before a board and present any kind of a change order. It's just not how I like to manage things. I like to have them, ready to go, but sometimes there are things that are not seen.
Sure. So you're asking for an additional 370.
2,000 change order. That's for area 1 and 2.
Okay.
And then 228,000
Okay.
contingency that we may or may not use based on what happens when we mill it. So
And a guaranteed additional $370,000 plus possibility of 228
28, yes.
additional $1,000. Okay.
I guess that's where I'm a little confused on the top part, Tim, is you've got option 1 and option 2. Are those additive or does one replace the other? In other words, one replaces the other. So it's 4,100 square feet. You're going to do some patching here and here and here.
Yeah.
Whereas the 55,000 square feet is the entire box as you've outlined it.
And that to me is the only way to go, because if you would go in and put in just some patches of AB3 and do that, you actually could be creating a dam so that the water can't get through there.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be coming back. But again, if it's that big of a deal that we don't do it, we have a way to take care of area 2 that would buy us a year or two. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna be back in 2 years asking for more than that because I've already bought 2 inches of asphalt for that area.
Yeah.
But if we put it down, then we gotta come back and ask for 8 inches instead of 2 that I've already paid for and 6 additional.
Well, and then I have to ask, if moisture seems to be the problem here, have we done anything to address drainage? And I'm not an engineer, I don't pretend to be one, but I kind of understand what you guys are talking about, going down and putting the substrate in and then, right, I understand all of that. But is there a bigger problem here that causes it to be a persistent problem because we are not adequately addressing the drainage?
I suspect the majority of your moisture problems throughout this parking lot are the cracks themselves.
Yeah.
In the pavement.
Yeah.
You get those rainfall events, that moisture goes straight to the bottom of that asphalt and tries to run laterally along that interface between the clay and the asphalt. Gets trapped, softens up that top layer of clay, and it just continues. And the softer it gets, the wider the cracks get, because the later the vehicle pumps the soil, opens the crack, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And then just to be clear too, for me, because I think this is something you guys addressed when we were patrons, right? I remember sitting in on the meetings, at least when it was presented the first time around. But we are scraping the entire lot and we are putting a new layer down on the entire lot.
On
Right.
areas 1 and 2, we would be going completely through the asphalt.
Yeah, but
Moving clay.
all of the parking lots getting resurfaced.
No.
There are some areas that, the area north of area 2,
It's a seal coat.
it's
crack seal.
it's gonna get a seal coat and crack seal
Okay.
because it's in good shape and it's actually not as
Okay.
old.
Then I did
Yeah,
misunderstand. I thought these were just hot spots, but we were actually repaving the whole.
No, we're not repaving. And again, the area to the left of area 2
Yep, okay.
was done previously as well. So, yeah.
Does, Doug, can we talk money for a minute? I know it said capital outlay. What does that look like? Especially as we approach budget season.
Yeah, it'll be capital outlay. We're starting a new budget year. We'll be levying 8 mils in capital outlay. That's probably going to generate around $7 million. We probably have at least 3.5 to 4 of that encumbered by what we plan to do the new year. So we do have some money available there. It just, it impacts cash balances. And so we may end next year a little lighter than this year, but we won't be in the red. That's what I'm looking at as far as trying to get this in worst case scenario.
Will this, I guess we can discuss this as we get to budget, but is this gonna affect any current projects we have? Like, are we gonna have to skimp anywhere?
No, we've also discussed, area 4, area 5, we could, because we haven't done a lot of work in there, we could just not do area 4. We could not do area 3. But we're going to be back next year asking you to do it. It's really going to be affecting the same money. We've got the guys here to do it now. And your costs are probably going to go up. Anyway, so it's, like I said, we could do it without doing it, but the first thing people see when they come to your buildings are your parking lots, and your sidewalks then going in. Everybody sees your parking lot and sidewalks whether they even go in the building. So, and again, when you start getting a lot of divots, some of you have especially been to a lot of stores where you feel like half of your tire is in the hole where you park. That's more where we're headed if we don't do anything. So, and you can just come in and fix those holes, but if you've gone back to the stores that just came in and tried to fix the hole, you notice next year they're fixing the same hole again. So.
Thank you. Any other thoughts, questions?
Again, we'll be bringing this, I'll be up here in a minute, or not a minute, but a little bit later to bring this back as an action item for you. So.
All right, well, Thank you very much, guys. All right, moving on, 10.4, architect and engineering contract for master planning, community engagement, and design build services.
Yes, we, again, and here recently, after work session, that we had about, managing our growth. It was decided that we, should probably first start looking, making sure that we do some, get some services on board to help us with master planning, community engagement as we explore, ways that we might look at, managing our growth that we know we're going to continue to have. And so we recently, had put out an RFQ for architectural engineering services along with master planning as well as community engagement services. And we had interviews a little over a week ago, and which again, a couple of our Board of Education members were gracious enough to give the day to assist us with that effort. And this evening, we're here to share out, kind of a little bit about that process and how we are recommending a particular vendor to provide us the architectural and engineering services along with our master planning, as well as any community engagement services that would take place, in the months ahead as we explore, timing and that for how we want to address our growth. So Mr. Meek, I'll let you take it from there. And then at some point, once we have questions, I'll also allow, like I said, the individuals that, again, participated the full day, Director Ewing and Director Horn can also weigh in with their thoughts as well.
All right. Back in early June, we put an RFP out for architectural services, architects and engineering services. And we sent them out to 5 area architecture firms that deal in schools almost exclusively or primarily deal in schools or do a lot of schools. We got 3 responses back. One of them said that they didn't see a reason to do it because they knew that a couple of the firms that we were already working with, that was their specialty in our area. They knew our district better than they did and thought it would be better to go with one of those 2 firms that we've worked with. So it's an architect that I've had a long standing. He used to be with DLR years ago, and he's now a principal at another firm. And he just said, I think one of those other firms would be a better fit for you. So decline that. The other one just did not get back to us about submitting one, which again, they may have had the same feelings that there's other people out there better for us because they already know us. So we got 3 back, and we had an internal group that looked at those 3. If it'd been 5, we probably went down to 3 and tried to get it down to 3 for the board members and the rest of the committee to do. But we thought that all 3 of them could do a good job. And so we recommended that we would interview all 3 of them. On the 26th, we had interviews. Thank you, April and Keith, for giving of your day to sit in on those with us. A good day. There was 2 of them that rose to the top, and either one of them I think could have done a great job for the school district, but there was just a few things that set DLR just above the deal with it, and so we're recommending to go back with DLR as our architect and engineering services for the purpose of master planning, community engagement, and design build. So the contract you have there, I won't bore you with that, but I will tell you that it is the same terms that we've had since, I think it's 2003. I don't know what year, roughly 2003 or 2004 when we first started with DLR. So same percentage, dealing with the same amounts and all that. So it's a good contract. There is a savings in it if we are to do a prototype. If we were to build Wolf Creek one more time and not make any substantial changes to it, maybe some small changes, just like Dayton Creek. We did a few deals. If you go into Dayton Creek, you notice the gym square instead of having some angles in there. Those are some things that they didn't have to do a lot of re-engineering or big design work to do. So then there's a there's about 1%, I think it's about 1% savings for us not to have to pay them for all of the total design work of it. They still have to go through the whole building, especially if we do things like we did at Forest Spring and we rotated the building and flipped it. So you gotta make sure everything flows the right way in the engineering department and where services enter and stuff like that. So any questions for us? And Josh Earhart's here with DLR. Most of you probably know Josh. Josh is a patron of the community. Josh is going to be our point person for DLR. Josh has been, when I first started with Josh, he was just, I don't want to say he was doing landscape architecture for us.
I was green. You're very nice, but I was very green.
Yeah. So, but Josh has worked his way up, and it's nice to have somebody that we know that's living in the community. You hate to, as I know from living in the community as long as I have, you don't want to go somewhere and have people saying bad things about something that you build or help build or anything else. You want to make sure it's a positive thing, and it's good to have somebody that we know is here for the long term. So Josh, do you have anything you want to share?
No, thanks, Tim, and thanks everyone this evening. We're very excited to have the opportunity again to serve USD 230. One thing too, I want to point out about the contract in front of you is that DLR Group does not get paid until the bond passes. We want 3 chances to pass the bond. If we fail all 3 attempts, we walk away. The district owes us nothing. We don't see a reason for the district paying us if we can't deliver on our end. So that's one thing I want to highlight in there. But any other questions? Have at it.
Yeah, I just have a question because one of the things that I think we've had a lot of success with in the past is involving our community early on and let them be the driver of whether we even go for a bond issue. And if we do, what the timing of it is. Could you just kind of high level speak to maybe your philosophy, like DLR's philosophy on that, and how you intend to help us gather our community, pull out of, reach consensus, because I've seen it done really well and I've seen it done, not necessarily at the school district level, but in other parts of the community done not very well.
Yeah.
And so if you could speak to that a little bit, I'm curious to hear it, because I know we had, before we started working with you, I think we had 2 or 3 bond issues that failed because they did not have community support. So we don't even want to go there if the community's not going to support it.
Yeah. So DLR Group, our slogan is listen, design, deliver. The first thing we're going to do is listen. And we've already had we had a microphone here. We had a meeting as early as last week to talk about how do we get the ball rolling here, because the district is looking maybe for something possibly next year. I want to let them elaborate on that. But consensus is big, is really big within the community, within the district. And we start very early on by creating these user groups. We'll have a community user group. We'll have a teachers and staff user group. And then we'll have a facilities user group of sorts. And we like to call it the 3-legged stool approach. And we want to have individual meetings with each one of those groups and gain consensus within those groups. Then we bring those 3 groups together and get consensus amongst the whole. Because if we can get, we call it the 3-legged stool, we can get consensus amongst the 3 legs and the stool stands up. If the parents aren't on board, if the faculty's on board, teachers, community, then it's probably going to fail. So really we have multiple engagements, and I believe in the front end of the contract, it talks about like 3 different meetings with these user groups of creating engagement, and we'll pull them together. We do polling within the community. If a lot of you who've been in the community for a while now, since the previous bond, you probably remember getting a phone call regarding the past bond. So we'll get that. We'll do community outreach. We do the vote yes committees, which some of you may be familiar with. We help get that together because the staff can't tell parents what to vote, but we can help put those committees together and of parents and users, and they can do that for you. So engagement is really big on our end. It really starts with the consensus as you're speaking about. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really am feeling strongly that we need to see what our community wants. And
Yeah,
so-
yeah, and that'll probably kick off here in terms of a timeline. We'll get, once everyone starts coming back from their summer breaks, you'll start to see probably some discussion about that here in the fall as we get these user groups together. I know we're trying to get another meeting set up here in a couple of weeks with staff on talking about what that schedule actually looks like. We're working with a couple neighboring districts right now that are looking to run a spring of 2025 bond. We're a few months into the planning process right now, but with the institutional knowledge that DLR Group has within the district. Personally, I've been working with DLR Group for 12 years now. I've been a resident of Spring Hill for 13, for those who don't know. So I've worked on every building since Wolf Creek and up. You could say I'm a product of Spring Hill architecture. So we understand the facilities more than any other entity within the metro. So we feel like that gives us a leg up. And so we can start this fall, hit the road running and pull those user groups together to get that consensus and get what the visioning is. We'll pull in a construction manager too, once the district has an idea of who they want to partner with there. Because it's a partnership with not only us and the district, but the CM as well. That's another three-legged stool. So we have the budgets and the money's all in the right place. So there's a lot of coordination happening. I always like to say, let's over communicate. So.
I mean, we see from up here that we're going to have 1,000 new students in the next 4 years,
Yeah.
that we got to do something.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether everybody in our community is seeing the same thing we're seeing. So
It gets really interesting, especially once you start to pull those user groups in. To hear what the community, how they view the district, versus what the district thinks. I won't get into with other districts, but it's really exciting and fun. You learn a lot about each other, you create that excitement. And once you start to create that excitement, that's really when you start to see the ball rolling there.
great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Anything else?
All right.
I do want to make sure everybody's clear that this agreement, which still is being reviewed by our attorney, but that this agreement does not incorporate anything, am I correct, about the master planning facility assessment piece, that's going to come under a separate component, correct?
That is correct.
And we hope to have that hopefully by the next meeting to discuss that
Yeah.
component, because we still need to look internally at what types of end result we want on our facility assessment piece, and that'll involve Kylie and Tim and Phil and all of us. So, but that component is not addressed, which is going to be a pivotal piece, but that component is not addressed within this particular contract here.
Yeah, they kind of go hand in hand. I would think you would need to kind of look at both things.
And yeah, I would second that idea.
The other thing that when we say that DLR will not get paid for the community engagement and that portion of it, there will be some expenses that the district will have. The election, for instance, we pay for the election process if we do a mail-in process. If we do a general election, we don't have to pay for the mailing of the ballots and all that, which I would not recommend, because your general elections are not a good time normally to do a school bond, because you have much less success with them. And the community engagement portion of it, they'll be the ones that decide ultimately it'll be you guys, but the community engagement portion will be the ones that will direct towards the timing of it and all of that as well.
Yeah, I just don't want people to we just need to be clear that we haven't made any decisions or any timing on anything.
No,
But that's what the community engagement piece is going to do.
yeah, and it may come after the community engagement piece that our community says, no, we're not ready for a bond issue, we would rather see class sizes increase to a certain level before we do that. I mean, that's a fair statement that they could. I know in the past, in the community engagement, that's not what people wanted. They wanted to keep our class sizes to a smaller one, but if they decide that 30 plus in a high school room is a good thing, that's where we'll head probably. Again, it'll be ultimately up to the board. Normally you don't want to go against a community group though, because your success, if you don't have the community behind you already, your success isn't very well. So
Just as a complete aside, in here that you're to provide us with a CD-ROM, DVD files of this stuff. Do we own the DVD? Can we read what they're sending us? Or can we maybe get in a way that
Something that's a
is in
little bit
this century?
modern.
Yeah, and just as a side note.
We'll get that updated. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, and they send it to us digitally too. I mean, from the beginning of the project, we're able to
Yeah.
access.
Yeah, that was my humorous point, way of saying, hey, maybe we should look at this and update it since the last time that we had an agreement like this.
There'll be an electronic. Yeah, so. I don't see anything wrong with CDs. I still use an 8-track.
That will come in
kidding.
482,000 3.25-inch discs.
All right. Well, any other questions or thoughts before we move on?
And if Mr. Goheen would get this back to us before the next meeting, which is our hope and our direction to him, then that'll be brought back as an action item to.
Well, the one thing I do want to say that is echoing what Sharon said is I'd like to see both agreements before I'm looking to make an approval. Of course, I'm just speaking for myself.
I don't have any other questions for them, but I would like to hear about the interviews from Keith and April, there's any from those. Sorry, not to put you guys on the spot, but.
No, it's okay. I'll go first.
Go ahead.
It was very interesting. The 3 groups came in and we had the companies did a presentation for the first 30 minutes. And then we had a series of set questions that we went through and asked for the remaining. And I'll say, I agree with what Tim said. There really wasn't a bad option that day, but DLR and really specifically Josh, his passion and the care that he just oozed out of him for Spring Hill was really, really a game changer for me, because I feel that same passion and I really care about Spring Hill as a whole. And it was very clear that you did. So with that, his passion, and then Ian was also with us, who he so kindly referred to as the bond father, I believe. So his name was. With his passion and then Ian's knowledge, it was a really impressive interview.
It was basically like sitting here, you got a slideshow and then I had to ask questions. But it was good. They did a good job. And it's the one thing, I mean, I guess the one question I had was, and I guess that's coming in the other deal about the site survey, because in the contract, I know you guys know all about our buildings, but that helped a lot because you know what you're walking into, but you're still doing somewhat of a study to
Assessment,
see
yeah. Throughout in the bond planning scope of work, we will be doing an assessment over the building facilities. Luckily, we have the institutional knowledge over the more recent buildings. There are probably 3 buildings you could guess within the district that are a little bit older that we'll have to spend more time on with our engineers and architects to review.
I just noticed in there, it was said not it.
They have done work in all of those buildings, so they already, and over time, so they do have some knowledge of them already, from roofs to HVAC systems to some other upgrades to some of those buildings. Even the early childhood center, they're the ones that did that when we converted that from a 6th grade center to an early childhood center. So they have, Josh says be a little more. Yes, it will be a little bit more, but they have a lot of knowledge even of those buildings as well.
And this is also what Kylie's also been working on, correct? The building needs assessment.
Yeah, we started down the road with DLR to start with, and then as we got to the phase of where we were actually going to do on RFP, we halted it for a little bit just because we didn't want them to put a lot more work into it, and and then find out, we're going to use a different architect firm, and no reason for us to spend our staff time or them to spend their staff time if they weren't going to be the ones to do it. So.
And I will say, I do appreciate the opportunity to go through the RFP process, which I know DLR was not obviously we have a great relationship, but it was really good to see what else was out there, just to know that we had the right relationship with the right group. So I really appreciate going through that process, even though it was.
So I hear you saying when we.
With all the
as
new
I say,
people that it's just something that I think you need to do when you have a lot of new people. and
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I think I hear April saying when we come to do an RFP for the construction manager, she just wants to be a part of that process really bad, so. No. But we are starting to work on that already as well, because they do go hand in hand. The construction guys have way more knowledge of the current costs and everything of a building, and so as we even just do assessments or whatever on the buildings, DLR has a good amount of that dollar figure, but again, it's always good to have the guys that do it every day for a living to be able to put that into, what does this rooftop unit cost this week? Not what does it historically cost over the last year, because anybody that's been around construction over the last 2 or 3 years understands that things are not the same as they were pre-COVID as far as costs. They're much different, and they might have settled down a little bit. We're starting to hear, but not, there's still some pretty good inflation on them. So.
Tim, can I add one more thing? As a parent also in the district, as hard as it was for that RFP to come out and have to re-interview for the position, as a parent, I really appreciate this board going through their due diligence and turning over every stone, because I do have 2 boys in Forest Spring Middle School. I appreciate that this board is constantly looking to see if they're doing the best they can. So thank you for that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both, and thank you for everyone who sat on that committee. Time well spent, sounds like to me. So. All right, moving on. It looks like 11.01, we have an action item. Nope. Oh, sorry. 10.05. Updated transfer request timeline.
Dr. Robinson will give us how we're going to approach the transfer process for this coming school year with the whole open enrollment and transfer. So Dr. Robinson, again, this is a item that again will be just simply discussion but brought back later.
Yeah, this is more just informative. Earlier this evening, you approved changes to policy JBCC. A lot of this is statutory, but I just wanted to highlight, we made 3 or 4 changes to the timeline that we had last year, and I'll try to very quickly explain why. The biggest one being the non-resident application window opens January 1st and extends all the way through June 15th. I would love to run a shorter window, but that's change in statute. So we wanted to make sure our timeline reflects that. You'll also notice that we moved our in-district transfer window up. We tried this year to keep it as close to what we've done in the past as possible. Really what we found is it made it really tight when we got to the end of trying to make a recommendation to you all about capacity. So we took a better look at what the other Johnson County districts are doing. I would tell you 3 of the 5 we looked at are following a really similar timeline of doing theirs in February. That allows us to have decisions about in-district transfers made very early and know for sure what our capacities of our buildings look like. And then the other big change was adding a kindergarten enrollment and new student window to the end. Ours will open. We're going to open one anyway because we need to be able to give that option, especially to our kindergarten families. And part of this, if you remember, we moved the whole process into Skyward. So we have to wait until they actually enroll with the district before we can process transfer requests. So those were the biggest changes, but if you've got any feedback or questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Can you explain that kindergarten notification? Sorry,
Yeah, so what happens is our kindergartners they start the enrollment process, but they don't get officially, like the enrollment piece final doesn't get processed through until early July at the earliest. So we can't add the transfer request form to their Skyward until they're actually enrolled as a student. So that's why once their enrollment is processed, they can then fill out the transfer form. We left that open for about a month, and then we are given notification for the first week of August. in hopes that we left the window open long enough to get everybody in and have our transfer committee meet one time. I would tell you that sounds really close to the start of school, and it is. That's what our timeline was when we all started here. So it has moved up because of changes in statute, but that was what we were working off of. So it's uncomfortable. It's not what we would like to do. We'd like to be able to do it earlier. Unfortunately, you can't really open new student and kindergarten enrollment any earlier without having them duplicate forms, because as we were talking, some of us before the meeting, there are multiple forms that have to be filled out after July 1st because of other deadlines. So
Overall, do you feel like the clarity is coming to the statute, or is it just getting muddier? Like, do you think they're gonna go back and change it? I mean, I don't want to open up a can of worms, but are they gonna, do you think there's gonna be
How honest do you want me to be?
legislative changes because it's just not jiving with things?
I think they did some cleanup legislatively this year that was helpful. There's still some things in it that are muddy, and I think they will be. I would tell you nearly every day, Rachel and I look at a different situation and kind of go back through, you know, based on the policy we have, based on the decisions we've made, trying to be consistent from family to family. I think that piece will get easier. The other part for next year is there's some things in this first year that they just changed to kind of grandfather in students who were already attending in the district. We also made some changes where we're not requiring our in-district students to reapply for a transfer every year if they're staying in the same building. So there's some things that should make the management of this a little bit easier moving forward. But right now it's still new to everybody. The other part is there's so many people with misunderstandings of what the policy really allows them to do that and I'm sure every district we're answering a lot of those questions right now. You know, people who believe that you at any time can just pick and choose where you want to go. And that's unfortunately not the way it is. But so far we've had pretty good conversations with a lot of people. I don't know that anybody has really lost their mind on us or anything like that. We've been able to kind of talk them through what our policy is, what capacity looks like for Spring Hill currently. We are going ahead with the applications we have received and still holding our lottery process on Wednesday. But still, as you guys approved earlier in the year, our capacity at all of our buildings, we're full. But it'll allow us to make sure we've got the right processes in place that if in the future we have room in a building, we're able to navigate that. So.
On that timeline, for the lottery, is there an acceptance period? Because presuming, say there's 10 applicants and we give out 2 spots, not that we have any spots, we don't have any spots. Are they no, I see shaking of head.
No.
So
there's requirements for us to notify them. I'd have to go back and look, but I don't believe there's anything in there that requires them to tell us in a timely manner if they're accepting, but I can double check.
But I'm also not sure the statute prohibits us from requiring.
Yeah.
Anyway, just it's a later problem, but we will have it at some point.
Yeah, the other question that has come up a couple times is how will we know if we have students that have applied and are accepted in other districts? There's not really a mechanism to do that until they fill out transfer requests for a new school.
So they have to request record, or like the other school
Yeah.
will request records eventually.
Yes,
Gotcha.
but there's no like universal process for everybody to see what's going on in other places. So.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going, which is this mid-July date kind of catching on? And is this kind of the end of the transfer window for the league, if you will? Is everybody kind of gravitating to this? So there will be some semblance of order?
So as it currently sits, we have to notify everybody by July 15th. So that'll be the end of this week. We'll be sending out all of our notifications. The nice thing in our application pool, we received about 20 applications. I would tell you only really 6 of those are new non-residents. Some of those is our people in our system have been trained that every year, if you were out of district student still attending, that you had to reapply. And so the rest of those were individuals who have already been attending, and the change the statute would grandfather them in. So we've been trying to start communicating that information to them. So if I remember right off the top of my head, we really only have about 6 students that applied, even though our capacity is full. So.
Have we heard back from those people? They're not freaking out?
Oh, we've talked to a couple of them, and yes, they would love for us to find a loophole to enroll them. I think the challenge in doing that right now is, both the state statute now and board policy that says otherwise. And so we're trying to be as consistent as possible. We have been trying to talk them through the exceptions that are there and make sure that, if they're experiencing homelessness, that we're exploring all of that and what that might look like. But we've been pretty upfront with our communication as to what our capacity was. So hopefully if they reached out to us in advance, they already know that the likelihood of being placed in one of our schools this year, pretty slim.
Do you think as every district goes through this year, maybe there will be like an agreement like, hey, after July 15th, that next week, everyone send your transfer requests. You know what I mean? And then not only that, we also put a deadline on enrollment. Hey, if you accept this, you have this amount of time to actually enroll. And I mean, could those help with those numbers? So if we did have seats open, we could then reoffer them to the lottery.
So I think what you'll see, the Johnson County area is normally pretty good at getting students enrolled in a timely manner. And I think you may see some smaller districts that don't have office staff that come on as early, that it may take a little longer for them to process transfer requests and things like that. But at least in our local area, I have no doubt that if they're accepting a student, we'll see transfer requests in a timely manner.
Well, thank you for all that. I know this has taken a lot of staff time, both of you guys, so thank you.
All right, well, moving on, now 11.1. Action item, approve change order for Spring Hill High School asphalt project.
We just, again, if there's to do the, it's in there, the recommended action would be to have a motion to approve the change orders and along with an additional contingency amount for the paving work at the high school and the change order amount of that's listed, and then a contingency amount if needed, not to exceed the amount there is what we would ask. Mr. Meek, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So.
Yeah, I just kind of want to restate what I think I heard you say earlier, which is option 1 of the change order is the horrible idea. It's the Band-Aid option, leads to more problems later. The recommendation is option 2 for the full depth replacement of area.
It's the Band-Aid when you need a tourniquet. Yes.
Right.
So.
So you need the 60,875 number and the $311,741 number. I just want to get down to the brass tacks of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and then for the change order. Let me pull it up.
Okay, well, but I just want to,
Yep, nope, I was trying to get there earlier.
Yeah, you can throw out the option 1. And so you're talking $60,875.84 for the northwest corner far north lot, which is area 1 on the map I showed. Area 2, throw out option 1, go to option 2, which is a $311,741.40 for the change order. For the contingency, and I'm asking this for that, plus permission to execute this contingency as a change order if necessary. Because otherwise I've got to, again, we'll have to have a special meeting and hopefully I've built my trust with you guys enough that you'll allow me to do that. If you're gonna create the contingency, you'll actually let me use it as well. For area 3, 4, and 5, which are the student lots between the football field and the gym. The number 3 is the student parking in front of Spring Hill High School where most of the handicap locations are right there. Number 4 is the area down below the high school gym where they always set up prom in the big tent and stuff like that. And then area 5 is a smaller one where we've already done some work and we don't think we're gonna really see much of anything, but we wanted just a little bit of contingency for that back parking lot, for the teacher staff parking lot. So, and that's a total of $228,510.
Yeah, Mr. Meek, I'm glad you phrased it that way because ultimately it does come down to our trust in you, and you have done nothing but serve this district well for far too many decades, right? So, and if I understood you correctly, Dr. Luttrell, the recommendation is we do it right. That's what my grandfather would always say is if you're going to do a job, do it right, right? So.
And actually not only me, but Kylie Adelphia as well. I mean, but again, I'll be working with Kylie, but on it, but again, it's really his project. But again, I'm not gonna, that's why I'm here. We work together well.
Yeah, because the only thing I would add is I normally have a problem with contingency, especially when you're talking $250,000, but it ultimately comes down to our trust and you guys doing the right thing. We got to do the right thing.
If there's any way to, if we get in there and we start milling it and we see that most of it's good, but there's a few spots that show up and we go ahead and full depth them and see, oh, this is a little bit of an area, but we don't see the water coming from another area, which normally when you full depth, you'll see the water starting to run out from underneath it. If we just get one area that's just softer, we'll probably do some of that, but not the whole thing. Again, it's the real test is when you put the milling machine on there and start running it. And if it looks like it's not going to work, then we start going deeper,
Yeah. And so just to rephrase that, just kind of like the original option, we knew we had some full depth stuff that is already being done. The holes are, you're asking for the ability, if it all goes south to do it all, your plan is to only address issues that need to be addressed. It is not an all or nothing contingency is what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, if we get in there and we find that we can get half of that one parking lot still in good shape, just because of the way it slopes. I mean, it can be that the water is here and it's running this way or it's running that way. I wish it was an exact science, but it's one of those things that it isn't an exact science, not in my experience. He's shaking his head as he might have seen something like this before too.
So the two numbers that we need to hear are $228,510 and 311.
Actually,
372.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking back at the sheet instead of the thing. Where is it?
372,741.
Oh, Madam President, I move that the board approve change orders and an additional contingency amount for the asphalt paving work at Spring Hill High School in the amount of $372,741.40 for the change order and up to $228,510 for the contingency.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right, Rachel.
Mrs. Horn,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Hole,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
approved.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, for future discussion items.
Yeah, there really have there really have not been any new items added to that. As we said, we will have very soon our basically pre-service meetings will be for teachers with the mandatory trainings in that. It was requested. And then, as you know, we continue to work on our facility assessment master planning, which was kind of what we've been talking about with some of the services that will be delivered from DLR. And then, like I said, we will continue to keep you updated in our weekly Friday update as to how our any open positions, especially for classroom teaching positions, the progress is going on those. Like I said, we feel good where we're at with our classroom teaching positions. We did find the world language teacher recently that, so I mean, we're still, the HR department, Ms. Hattie's working very hard every day, many hours to make sure that we have all of our staffing positions, especially the classroom teaching ones, filled.
Maybe we can talk about mandatory bathroom breaks after 2 hours of meeting.
I thought there was a discussion item about discussing the cell phone use policy. I don't see it on here now. Was that did we decide to remove that, or I don't know why that's not still on there?
No, that's still going to be brought, it's going to continue to be a discussion on this next year with our superintendent student advisory group. And hopefully at some point we will bring back from them, kind of report back and give some feedback as to, what they're thinking. I know, again, as we're also kind of monitoring to see, I know that is a topic that is continuing to, you're seeing more districts start to have discussions about that. I'm kind of wanting to see what they're deciding in the end. And I think there's some other things we need to be, but no, it has not gone to the wayside. But I'm not for sure exactly if it'll be back like in the next meeting or two, but it's coming.
Awesome. I know I had thought that too. Not only that, I know the high school did a pilot program with taking cell phones at the beginning of classes, and I want to know how that went.
Maybe I can suggest this sounds like something that actually has been discussed, went out. This sounds like it needs to be on the board work calendar, is what it sounds like. Which is the next action item that we can do after we have a bathroom break, pretty please, with sugar on top, Madam President.
Yes. Why don't we take a break? 8:15, is that? 8:20. 8:20. All right.
Yes.
All right, we are back in session. Next on our agenda, 13.1, the board work calendar.
Hey, when are we gonna add cell phones on there?
Think it sounds like maybe we need to add our cell phone policy review sometime in the next few meetings, or at least put it on there so we know when it's coming.
Yeah. Because Dr. Luttrell, you said you were doing this with your student group last year, or you're doing it this upcoming year?
We started it last year. I was going to continue it this year because this year there should hopefully be more data out there as to how effective school districts that have implemented some of the newer strategies, how successful they've been, what the feedback has been.
So my thought is, we actually changed our policy last year. We updated it last year and it was tweaked just barely, but we updated it. We've run a pilot and I think now we need the feedback. I think now's the time. We don't need to wait. We don't need to wait to see what other districts are doing. I think now's the time to see how that went in our district. So I'd love an update. I'd love for us to get that on the work calendar to in whatever capacity of presentation, whatever that looks like. So.
Just not on August 12th, because I will not be here.
Oh, I was gonna say August 12th would be the perfect day. No, I mean, but kind of. Well, I'm looking at meetings that don't have stuff on it.
Well, and I'm not sure, do we have plans for a work session? Is that a work session topic?
I think the next work session was going to be about the budget and about finance, school finance. I guess you were not at the last meeting because you were out of the country.
Sorry.
But that was what we had talked about as the topics for the next
Okay.
session.
Well, in fairness, would doing it in like the September 23rd meeting kind of split the baby and give Dr. Luttrell an opportunity to talk to the students right after school starts and still be in the
That's a
next.
morning meeting.
I think if you're definitely, there's two things. If you're wanting to report an update on just what how the existing policy is going that has already been approved again for this next year, yes, we can do that. But in terms of, if you're looking at putting a new cell phone policy into place for this school year coming up, but we've got a lot of time to still do that if we're gonna, which we don't, but whether it's September, August, whenever you want it, we'll get it on there.
Well, I
But-
think I'm so sorry. I think our request is not, and I could be wrong, but I think our request is, how did the policy change? How did that go? Did we see improvement in student behavior? Did we see, whatever that looks like? I think we're looking for some feedback along with, how did the pilot go earlier this year? How was that implemented? Who ran it? Did students have options? Like, I don't think any of us have ever heard it as a board. The only reason I know about it is because I sit on the site council. So I think with changes that are happening locally, regionally, along with our prior board's action, I do think that we need some sort of update in how did it go? Where is it going? Did the change make a difference?
And I would love to hear teacher perspective, maybe some parent perspective, and definitely some I know I had a student in the pilot, so I've had some firsthand knowledge. But I think it would be everything. I don't think we're looking for a change. I would just like to know the status. Like, how's our school feel about phones? How's it going?
And I would fathom to say that I don't think this is much a surprise since up until recently, it's been on our discussion list. So I think sooner rather than later, we've had a whole year of policy change and now pilot. So sooner rather than later, in my opinion. But let's find something that works for everybody. What about a morning meeting? I think if anyone disagrees, I think it's a little hard in a morning meeting, especially if we think it's going to have a lot of discussion.
Well, it just, the meetings that we have, just a point to bring up, the meetings that we all have coming up are budget meetings. And I think those are going to be pretty meaty. And that's kind of my concern and why I was trying to push until.
My other caution would be, you're gonna want your building principals who start back next week focused on the start of school. And so I understand wanting a report soon, but I want to be protective that their focus is getting academics started rather than jumping right back into a report. But
That's fair.
Yeah. And I know it's a morning meeting, but it's kind of an update.
What date were you guys looking at?
I was looking at the 23rd just because it gets us past budget.
This is August.
I'm sorry, September 23rd, because it gets us past budget and it's kind of the soonest.
Yeah, I do think one thing that it'd probably be better sooner, the better, just because if there's some things that maybe you'll stir up some emotion and we're trying to draw our community together, it might be better to have those discussions now.
Very good.
And then, have a lot more collaborative discussions in the next few months. So.
Yeah, that is a really good point.
Well, then that would be.
Yep. So one thing to keep in mind, morning meetings are not televised, so.
Yep, they're not.
Okay.
That's right. So anybody else object to September 23rd?
Nope.
As long as we're done by 8 o'clock, I'm fine.
Dr. Luttrell, does that sound like something that you all can live with?
We can definitely make it happen. I mean,
So I think we're saying the direction from the board is to add that. It must be an agenda item on September 23rd. Is that the direction of the board?
Yeah, thank you. Any other items that we see coming up?
When are the discussions regarding, oh, okay, never mind. I see it here, February. The KASB policy updates. Mr. Robinson, Dr. Robinson, that is that part of the?
no, that's our annual. Typically, KSB releases policy updates in December and in May, June-ish, every year. We have initiated the process with KSB. I don't expect that that we'll have anything back from them until closer to November, December, based on the initial timeline they gave us. So we haven't put any of that on here until we see when it'll be complete.
Yeah. It looks like the July 22nd meeting, a lot of it is what we're discussing today, right? Anything else, Sharon? Do you usually look at this and instruct from here?
Yeah, I mean, when you're doing your agenda review meetings, they'll have pulled things from here. It does, some of the things are on the Monday, July 22nd that we already did this meeting. So you might have to look further down and see if there's something to pull up from the next one, but
Yeah.
Dr. Luttrell and Rachel kind of start building it and then you can kind of double check it with this.
I'm sorry, while we're still in board work, 10.05, the updated transfer request timeline, was that something that we could just put in the consent agenda so Dr. Robinson doesn't have to come back up again? Are we all cool with that?
I think that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, that's probably fine. I didn't realize we were bringing it.
So since we're talking about the board work calendar,
I'm actually not sure if it even needs board approval.
I don't
Oh.
think it does.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, it was just,
Because you've approved the policy, you approved the guidelines. If you want to review it and approve it, I'm not opposed to that.
oh, okay. I thought you were changing the dates from the policy. Sorry.
Yeah, no.
The dates aren't need board approval.
No.
Okay. Yeah, we don't need to approve things that we don't need to approve.
Yes, nope, nope. Okay, so let's move on then. 15.1 Superintendent's Report. Dr. Luttrell?
Yeah.
Or did I skip one? Geez, guys, I'm gonna get it together. 14.1 Board of Education member reports. Anyone have anything to report?
Congratulations to the newly elected officers.
Thank you.
Sad.
Sharon is not sad. Okay, well, moving on then. 15.1 Superintendent's Report. Dr. Luttrell?
Just a couple items that are pretty basic. Simply, we have, like we just talked about, we do have a discharge meeting on the 22nd. We do have a work session for the 29th. The main topic there that had been determined was going to be on basically just since we got the budget hearing coming up and several new members, as well as the fact that school finance is just a complicated topic in general. We were going to have the bulk of that at time devoted to having Mr. Swin share just some general aspects of the budget in terms of revenues, expenditures. We also were going to add an element as to, you probably have heard, as you know, the last 2 years, this will be the third year, that, you know, every building has to do a needs assessment, and how that needs assessment kind of helps shape and plays into the actual development of the budget so that we do meet the extent of what the statute calls for. And then our first day of school, as I said, is around the corner. Our opening ceremony is set for Monday, August 12th at the high school. And then the actual first day, student attendance day, will be Tuesday, the 13th. And as like I said last month, that number of days is dwindling. And after today, I think there's 36 calendar days until our first attendance day. That's my superintendent's report.
Is the opening ceremony on August 12th, is that going to be like it's traditionally been and that we can come and?
Definitely, yeah, there's definitely a good invitation. We are gonna try to, if we can, because again, the one thing that is on staff members' minds, and because we start that very next day, is we have open houses that night in a couple of our locations, and teachers are still getting their classrooms ready. So we want to be respectful their time. So we're gonna try, as we put our program together, we've always tried to keep it to around 90 minutes or so. We're going to try to even shorten that a little bit, try to keep it maybe as closer as we can, maybe to an hour and 15 minutes, just so we can be respectful of that time and for the teachers listening to some of the feedback that we've received. But definitely, I think it's an important time, and you know, they love to see our Board of Education members there supporting them and wishing them and for a good school year.
Mhm. Very good.
Wonderful. Thank you. Did you tell us the time of the opening ceremony? Did I miss that?
We haven't set the exact time of when we're going to start. I know in the past it's been 7:45 breakfast was available, and then it started the ceremony around 8:30 or so. But this year, again, trying to be respectful of time, we may move that to where maybe the breakfast is available from like 7:30 to 7:45, and maybe start the program right at 8 o'clock to where we could have kind of wrapped up around that 9:15. But we should be know that definite time within about a week to 10 days at the latest.
Wonderful.
Is that something that Rachel could send out a calendar request?
Yes, I can.
Okay, that'd be
well,
great.
or even, yeah, a calendar thing, but also can we just publish it so we don't have to worry about more than 3 of us being there? Can we just put it on the?
Yeah.
Yes, I will notice it. I notice
Yeah,
it
can
every
we just
year.
notice it?
That
Is everybody
sounds good.
cool with that?
Yep.
And last year they asked for our pictures or every year they ask us for some little quirky thing. If they have a request, could you get that to us? Cause I feel like sometimes it takes some minute for us to get it to them. Awesome. All right, moving on. Looks like we need an executive session.
Sorry. Madam President, I move that the board go into an executive session for the purposes of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel to protect the privacy interest of identifiable individuals under coma. Those to be in the session include the Board of Education members, the super.
Mr. Chitwood, I think we just need the Board of Education members and then the superintendent as requested for this one.
The superintendent of schools and others as requested.
Hmm.
The executive session to begin at 8:40, ending no later than 9. Resuming no later than 9 at this place.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Rachel, will you take the roll, please?
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Ewing,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Hull,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Horn.
Yes.
Approved.
President, I move to extend executive session to end no later than 9:30 at this place.
Second.
Okay, Rachel, take the.
Hold on one second. Who seconded?
Anna Baker seconded.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I did.
Mrs. Milius,
Yes.
Mr. Chitwood,
Yes.
Mrs. Baker,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
approved.
We're adjourned.